Hi, in this video, we're going to talk about this new AI application or system called Deepseek. For some context, the reason why I'm even talking about this is because today is January 28th, Nvidia dropped 17.7% because supposedly Deepseek sparked all this global panic around AI, particularly because Deepseek exposed or claimed that to train their AI, it was like 5% of the cost that it cost to train ChatGPT or OpenAI. So the implications of this are that somehow China figured out how to make things cheaper than the United States again but the problem with this is that the valuation of tech companies like Nvidia, like most of the software companies, where most of the speculation about its value has to do with what AI is going to do and how AI is going to change the world and how their chips and video chips are powering all this AI craziness. The fact that China somehow figured out how to do it for a fraction of the price is a huge deal. So within that context, what I want to do, and I actually haven't even tested this, so I'm recording this live as you also kind of watch me do it, is I'm going to take an accounting application, and by application, I mean an accounting example, and put it to the test with ChatGPT versus Deepseek and see how accurate and also how fast either one is. So for some context, I am in the paid version of ChatGPT, which is using the R1 model. So I pay $20 a month for ChatGPT Plus. There's also the Pro model, which is $200 a month, which I pay for also, but we're not going to test that again. I want to try to get as much of an apples to apples comparison. So we're going to be using the R1 model which is available in the Plus edition only. Just a quick note. The free edition of ChatGPT also has access to the R1 model, but with a very limited number of chats per day. So we're going to go ahead and ask it a question. And for some other additional context, if you watch some of my other videos on my YouTube channel, I am mostly focused around how these tools affect accountants and how accountants can use these tools to improve their life and workflow but right now I'm going to ask a question that a small business owner, like one of our clients, would also ask the AI. And I'm really mostly interested in whether or not this Deepseek is good enough to compare with ChatGPT. And because it's free. The other challenge here is, will small business owners flock to using Deepseek and other free AI tools and stop using their accountants, for example? That's kind of the premise here. So the question here is, I have a client that's married filing jointly, 100K in W-2 for him, 100,000 W-2 for her, Schedule C taxable income of 90,000. She's got a KO4 278. He has a K1 as a general partnership for 76,000. There's 21,000 in self-employment health insurance, 2 Schedule E properties making 44,000 each on rent, 1 child born in 2024, no daycare expenses, and then they paid 50K W-2 Fed withholding and 27K in estimated taxes. What's their tax liability? So just kind of imagine that a small business owner, instead of hiring their accountant to do tax planning and kind of see where they are in the tax preparation, they have it at their fingertips, on their phone, saying, hey, I make this much money, this much money, this much money. How much taxes am I going to pay, and how much estimated taxes should I pay? I'm thinking kind of in the near future where the average American basically just uses their AI phone app to do what they usually use to pay accountants to do. So that's essentially what I'm going to test out. So I'm going to grab the exact same question on the ChatGPT side and paste it on the Deepseek side, and I'm going to hit send on both. And we're going to look at two things. One, we're going to look at speed. So how quickly both of these process, and both of these are in Deepthink or high reasoning mode which takes a lot longer than the standard ChatGPT that you may get used to, especially if you've been using the free versions. So you're going to see it take a little bit longer. I'm actually going to put a timer at the top so you can actually see how long it takes. And if there's a lot of waiting, I'll just edit the video in such a way, but we can actually time how long it actually takes for both of them to come up with a conclusion. So that's speed. And then, secondly, we're going to look at the end result and we're going to see how far off they are. Now, I'm not going to verify this. The best way to verify this is to actually plug this into a tax return software. So if you're an accountant, CPA, is that those tax returns, do me a favor, grab this scenario, put it in your tax return software, and go in the comments and tell me exactly what the tax liability your software says, so we can also judge how far off this goes. So let's go. I'm going to hit send and compare speed, Deepseek R1, Deepthink V's, ChatGPT 011 reasoning. Then send. Okay. So I hit send on both, and I'm going to explain a little bit what's going on, and then I'll just fast forward until the ending. So on the left hand side, you see thinking, and on the right hand side, you also see thinking. You can actually collapse the thinking and have to actually see the details. So you actually have the choice of seeing the details, seeing the thinking, or simply just waiting. So on the left hand side, it says here, gathering the details. There's thinking going on, but you don't get to see it until you click on it. Once you click on it, you actually see its thinking. So there's no answers yet here. This is just its thinking. This is its reasoning, what they're calling reasoning. So this is the left hand side. This is ChatGPT. On the right hand side, I'm going to expose that, and ChatGPT 4, I'm going to open that up and then you can see how it reasons, or how it thinks, or Deepthink, how they're saying it. So you see that it actually extrapolates the information and writes it all down, and it does a lot of this. Let me clarify. Let me double check. Let me triple check. It does a lot of that. Deepthink is interesting because it sort of checks its own work, and you can actually read through and see everything that it's doing. So this is its own reasoning, and the reason why it takes so long really is because it goes back and double checks the work, double checks the math. So both of these are thinking, quote unquote. So at this point, I will just fast forward the video until the end. Okay, so at this point, Deepthink finished, and it came up with the tax liability of $173,481. Now, right off the bat, I could tell you I don't think it took into account the prepaid taxes. We actually said in the instructions what they have already paid. My question was, what is their tax liability? So I wasn't very clear on that part. The other thing that's really interesting is that Deepthink, I think, has not been updated with 2024 information. So it's actually saying that it's assuming that the 2023 brackets and the T24 brackets are similar. Okay. Now on the left hand side, we see that there's, it's finishing answering on the left hand side. So it's almost done there. So let's see what it comes up with. So it came up with 173,000 without the prepayments, and it also assumed that 2023 tax brackets are similar to 2024. So that just gives reason to believe that Deepseek is not as updated as ChatGPT. So that's kind of one negative point for Deepseek. But at the end, if the estimate is fairly similar, we are going to draw a very similar conclusion. Okay, so the left-hand side, or ChatGPT, it's almost done, and both came up with a very similar number. See, ChatGPT says 103,936 says 73,936, and then Deepseek says 73,481. Interestingly enough, ChatGPT actually took into account what was already prepaid, and then it says what the liability is. I think with this one we can just ask it to reduce the prepayment, so it would just be sort of one last step to tell it to reduce the prepayments. It could do that. That's probably the easiest math that it could ever do, and it shouldn't do that much deep reasoning. It should just do that. So I think, at least from an accuracy perspective, they both seem such a complex question that has a lot of moving parts. Like tax has a lot of moving parts. They both seem to perform about the same. Now, is one thing that's worth doing is we're going to grab the exact same question, and we're going to ask not the reasoning engine. We're going to ask ChatGPT the fastest version of ChatGPT, which is this one, or regular 40. And then we can actually time both of these. So let me start 40, which doesn't have the reasoning, and ask it. And I'm going to hit send. And I'm just going to maximize this for a second, because we're not looking at DeepSeek anymore. We're just checking timing in this case. So let's see how quickly it gives me the answer, and if it gets me that accurate. That much accuracy without necessarily jumping into the reasoning mode. Now, this is, in theory, the fastest version of ChatGPT is the 40 model. This one concluded 155,000, which is much different than the last one, 55,000, which is much different than the last 173,000. I have reason to believe that 173,000 is closer to being accurate. Let's start. Let's try now the Z1 Mini, ChatGPT Mini with reasoning, which is there as it's a little bit faster. So let's just time this one. Wow, this Mini is fast. There you go. So this one actually came up with 173,000 is closer to being accurate, 191,000, so that's kind of weird. Okay, the first reasoning model went to 173, DeepSeek went to 173 as well. I guess I still kind of think that 173 might be the correct one. So this one maybe rushed it or missed a step in the process somewhere. Let's try a different AI model. I'm going to go into Claude and see what Claude calculates, and we'll time that as well. Claude, and I think it's important to use the best model too. So this is the best model that Claude has. So we'll time this one as well. So let's see what Claude is actually telling me in this particular case. That the total tax is $2,006, and that without the withholding is $129,000. So all these AIs are sort of all over the place. Claude was the fastest, but I wonder if that was accurate. Let's ask one more. This one's called CPApilot. CPApilot is actually designed to work only for accounting concepts. So let's see if CPApilot gives me any better answers. By the way, CPApilot actually runs through OpenAI, so it uses the same engine as ChatGPT. They just created these processes where they give it specific guidance on how it uses to calculate the information. So let's see if CPApilot does anything different. So we'll hit send and let's just do a Federal via RS and let's see what it does. So CPApilot is giving me 157,000, which is a little bit closer. Let's go back to ChatGPT here. It's actually a little bit closer than the ChatGPT 40 calculation, which gave me 7,000. We're going to try one more, TaxGPT. This one's called TaxGPT, also similar to CPApilot. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to go ahead and ask the same question and hit send. And I think it's just fair to try all the different AI applications that are out there. Now, both CPApilot and TaxGPT are mostly focused around helping accounting professionals. So the average small business owner wouldn't buy TaxGPT to research and do this sort of thing. It would be more common for a small business owner to use something like ChatGPT or even Deepseek to come up with answers. So is this one. Okay, let's see what the answers are here. Okay, still working through. Let's see what happens. This one's saying that it's 159,000, the total tax liability minus the 77. So these guys are all hovering around that 150 to 150 to 173 number. You know, if this is inaccurate, then obviously it's meaningless, right? If it's not accurate, it doesn't work. If it's within 5,000, I guess I'm generally okay, but at a 20,000 swing I wouldn't be okay with that. The focus here was mostly to figure out speed. I'm sure accuracy is something that they'll figure out, but speed is one of those things that I really have a lot of people thinking about this really hard. Groq, there's another kind of experimental tool called Groq. This is actually a chip company, a computer company, and really what Groq website does is for you to test the speed of how quickly it runs, and it could be using ChatGPT or could be using different models. So let's see how Groq comes up with an answer and I'll log in here really quick. And, we're going to assume that Groq is going to be super fast because it's always known as being just really, really fast. So let's see what it comes up with. Look how quickly it came up with an answer. and this one came up with a tax liability of 74,000. I wonder if it's already applying the 74,000. So this one's giving me 51,000. So that's interesting. Interestingly enough, this one is based on Meta. So this one's using Llama. So that gives me a good general idea. Let's test Google as well. Google Gemini. Let's see. Let's go look at Gemini and see what Gemini gives us. So this is Google Gemini. Let's see how quickly it goes and the kind of answer that it gives me. And again, why I'm doing all this. We're testing speed, we're testing accuracy, but most importantly, we're trying to figure out if we should be freaking out about Deepseek, a Chinese company doing this better than the American companies, right? I mean, look, there's Google already that it was super fast. Let's see what kind of answer it gives me. So let's go here somewhere. Where's my Google answer? Oh, is Google actually says that it's impossible to do it. That's actually pretty interesting, saying that it needs to know more information. So it actually gets sort of halfway there, but it doesn't seem to fully be able to compute. I'm going to try a different version of Google. It's called AI Studio, and this one is using the new model, which is called Gemini 2.0, supposed to be the best version of Gemini. So we're going to select that one. And I'm going to ask it the same question and see if it actually can answer. So Gemini, the regular Gemini that I actually pay for, couldn't even come up with an answer. I said it was impossible. We'll see if this one can. I assume that it actually can. So let's see what this comes up with. Okay, so somewhere here, it's right here, total tax liability 152 minus the 77. It's also worth mentioning Perplexity using Deepseek R1 Model. Now, the cool thing is that this Deepseek is also available in AI tools like Perplexity that allow you to choose which model you want to use. So Perplexity now, which is one of the most popular engines as well, is you can choose whether you want the Zoe one with reasoning or the Deepseek quicker and then we can see what the results are. So interestingly enough, it was a little bit faster, but it did come up with a whole different number, right? So 135,000 now, which, obviously minus the 77,000, but it's kind of way off. And obviously at this point, we don't know what to trust, right? So once again, the best way to get the real answer is to actually use professional tax preparations software and figure out what the number is. I'm going to do that offline after I do this video. But if you guys are any accounting professionals watching this, go into the comments, do the calculation yourself, and tell me what your tax software says. There's certain numbers that you may have to assume, but based on this information, we concluded based on 5 different AI engines or 6 different AI engines that this taxpayer owes between 152,000, 73,000 minus a 77,000 prepaid. Again, that's a really big swing, but it's important to check the speed and possibly not get so sensationalized. Is so freaked out about this new Deepseek. I mean, this is the first big version that we see. I mean, it's a huge release, huge splash, relatively fast, relatively accurate. Actually, the fastest compared to the deep thinking model that ChatGPT had. All the ones were really deep thinking. That's it. See you in the next video.